everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Rust Belt Collector here, and today we are taking a look at the World of Halo 2-pack Flood Tank Form and Master Chief from Halo 3. This is the first 2-pack from Series 5 that I've been able to get my hands on. This came in from Amazon, and I feel like I might be the last person to get my hands on this. If you like what you see in this video and you want to pick one of these up for yourself, I will leave a link down in the description where you can order one. At the time of recording, they are still in stock on Amazon.com. They retail for $21.99, which I feel is pretty standard. We're getting a lot of accessories here. We're getting 2 figures, which typically retail for $10 each, and the tank itself is a very large piece of plastic, so that makes up for the value right there. Now, as for the set itself, it comes in the same packaging we've pretty much been getting since Wave 1 with a few minor tweaks. On the back, you can see all of Series 5 there. Now, all of these were released in Canada months and months ago before we ever saw them in the States, but we got Series 6, so there was some sort of distribution error where we got Series 6, they got Series 5, and now it is our turn to finally get Series 5. I've seen reports that the single-carded figures are showing up on store shelves. I've definitely seen some scalpers on eBay selling these for way too much, but eventually I will track all of these down. Hopefully I can find them online because none of my local stores sell World of Halo anymore, but your mileage may vary, and I highly recommend checking Target's and Meijer stores. Those are the two that seem to have the most consistent restocking of World of Halo right now. But I gotta say, between Series 5 and Series 6, these are some of the best offerings we have gotten from Jazwares in the World of Halo line. Unlike some of the previous waves, I have no problem picking up every single one of these figures, and in some cases multiple, like the Halo 3 Marine and the Halo 3 ODST. But without further ado, let's break this packaging open and take a look at the figures. Having these all out of the package now is really awesome. Everything you see here is actually brand new sculpt work, molding, all that stuff, except for the Master Chief figure. That is a repack from the GameStop exclusive Master Chief and Arbiter Warthog run set. And that's okay. I mean, Master Chief doesn't change in the game, so it's a good place to see this as a repack. But everything else you see here, including the stands, are brand new to Series 5. Just my initial impression here, I do feel like I'm getting that $21.99 price point out of this set. Again, this figure would be the $10 that a normal pack-in figure is. And then you have the Flood Tank Form, which is just pure plastic. Like, it is very hefty, it's a very large sculpt, but it also has a lot of paint detail, which is incredible. And then you get the Infection Form. So I feel like this actually does make up a good $12. You know, you have the $10 here, which would be a normal pack, and then since you got to make up the 12, here's the 12. I feel like you're getting your money's worth here, especially for a figure pack in 2022. Like, that's not very common. I feel like other brands may have priced this at almost $30. Now, going over accessories, we do get 2 interlocking base plates here. Series 5 is the last wave to get these with pretty much every pack. Series 6 has mostly done away with them. We do see them with the Skirmisher and possibly some of the 2-packs, but for the most part, these are going away, probably to make up some of the value with inflation and all that. And to me personally, that's okay. I have a ton of these, but with these in particular from this pack, and maybe with some of the other 2-packs, but I'm not totally sure, this is a really cool new base plate because it is Covenant flooring, like the flooring from Covenant ships. We haven't gotten this before, and I am really happy to have a new texture for these base plates. I'm not sure if you would consider this an accessory or a figure, but we do get 3 of these Flood Infection Forms. These are all just solid molds. There is no articulation here, but it is a softer plastic, so you can see the tentacles can be moved around. Some of the legs might be deformed when you take it out of the package initially, but it's actually really easy just to bend them back into a position. And of course, if they're being really stubborn, you could always heat them up, reposition them, and then dunk them in cold water, and that would definitely fix it. But overall, these are just good for what they need to be, you know, just things that you can kind of sprinkle on the ground, and the more the merrier. You know, I did buy 2 of these packs because I wanted more of these Infection Forms so that I could have just an absolute swarm running at Master Chief. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that these might be the first time we've gotten an Infection Form since we got the original Infection Form with the Joyride figures back during like the Halo 2 era. These are absolutely horrendous, but they are made in a very similar way, just with soft plastic tentacles. However, because they are just pretty much vertical tentacles, These guys do not stand up for anything. I've never been able to get these to really look good in a display. The way that these are made is ideal. They can just lay close to the ground and they look like they're crawling. Final accessory we have here is the UNSC Flamethrower. This is the first time we've gotten this in the World of Halo line, and it looks absolutely amazing. I love the toothy grin there across the front. There's even little decal prints right there on the, I guess the exhaust piece. Overall, it's just really detailed. There's paint apps everywhere. There's even a little hose that's running through there. It's really awesome to finally see the flamethrower in World of Halo. Now, I know a lot of the time people will compare these Jazwares figures to lines like the McFarlane Halo figures, where there's just way more detail and sculpt work and paint washes and all that, but it's kind of incomparable. You can't compare the two because of, you know, just changes in the economy, changes in plastic manufacturing, cost, all that kind of stuff. But this flamethrower may be the first time that World of Halo could be stacked up next to McFarlane, and they would actually be pretty comparable. Now, while some of the colors may be off and the detail is definitely a little bit softer on the sculpt work with World of Halo, these two side by side do look really, really close to each other. Now again, I'm not crazy about comparing the two because they are from different eras. Like I said, they're not quite comparable, but this is just to show how far along the World of Halo line has come since Series 1. Now then, taking a look at the figures, first off we have Master Chief. Now, like I said before, he is pretty much the same as the Master Chief from the GameStop exclusive. If you want to check out my review of that set, there is the link right up there in the corner. But there really isn't any difference here in terms of sculpt work or articulation. The Master Chief from the Warthog run does seem to be a little bit more of a brighter green, and he's a little bit more of like a drab green. That could really just come down to the type of plastic used in the molding process. There's a lot of reasons for that to happen. Even so, though, we have to do our due diligence and take a look at the articulation. So really quick, hinge and swivel at the head. You can swivel it side to side, tilt it forward, tilt it back, hinge and swivel at the arms. You can hinge it up to 90, hinge and swivel at the elbow, hinge that into just under 90, hinge and swivel wrists all the way around, in and out at each joint. And of course, I will say it again, this hand ought to be up and down just so that it can better hold weapons, but that's just my personal preference, and you know, your mileage may vary. There's a ball joint at the torso giving you side to side crunch. No real forward crunch, like there's nothing moving there, but you can tilt it back just a little bit. Ball jointed hips that lets you hinge out to there. You can hinge it forward to there and hinge it back to there. There is a thigh swivel that gives you a bit of rotation there. The knees are double jointed, allowing you to flex them to there. Now, I'm not crazy about how this knee pad is molded. This piece should be attached to the shin and knee pad element here. I wish that this was just maybe either left blank or sculpted to look like his undersuit, and then the knee pad could just be complete there. But moving down to the foot here, we have a hinge that gets you to there and to there. However, unfortunately, this is not a rocker. The pin just goes straight down into the foot, meaning that it's actually just a swivel, so there is no side-to-side rocking like we would be used to. This can lead to the figure being slightly unstable in certain poses, mainly because this back foot can't rotate down to have more surface area touching the actual ground. So it does work. You can see here I did actually get him to pose without, you know, a stand or me holding him up or anything. It's definitely less stable than it could be if that foot had a rocker. Now, I'm sure there's probably some reason, probably the integrity of the plastic here, but even if they did a 45-degree angle going down to the bottom of the foot there, that would be better than just the plain swivel in my mind. But moving on to the main attraction from this 2-pack, the Flood tank form. This figure is really impressive in just how gruesome it is. It's molded in this disgusting kind of greenish color and this fleshy pink color. It's got a paint wash to really bring out all the sculpt work. It's kind of shiny and kind of glossy in a gross, fleshy way. It is disgusting in every possible way that I would want a Flood action figure to be disgusting. And surprisingly, despite its bulky nature, it actually does have some pretty good articulation going on with it. Now, I will say this figure, as you can see, tends to be a little bit top heavy because a lot of the mass of this plastic is up here at the top and in this arm, and his feet are rather stumpy. You know, they're not really made for good balance, but it is possible to get him to stand on his own. You can even position the arm down a bit to make that kind of give him some stability. I think he even does that in the game. But of course, if you can't get it, there are these stands in, you know, the event of an emergency, or you just don't want to have to worry about it when you put him up on the shelf. The sculpt work and gross paint wash continues all the way around the back. You have all these like bumps and swirls and, you know, musculature, I guess. It's very fitting for what a Flood figure should be. I was very pleased to see this announced because I wasn't quite sure if they would be, doing the Flood. The Flood is one of those things that I don't always know if brands are comfortable with making, especially like the human Flood forms. They're very grotesque, they're not something that necessarily would be conducive to a child's toy. But I'm glad we're at least getting the pure forms. Maybe we'll also see some, infected brutes and elites and humans down the way, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. Now for articulation with this figure, we have a hinge and swivel at the head. So you can swivel the head just like so, and you can hinge it forward to there and down to there. Both shoulders are hinge and swivel, so all the way around on this one. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. The hinge really only gets you that much motion out of it. On this arm, you can swivel it all the way around, as you can see, and this is the lowest it goes, and it can hinge all the way up to 90. The elbows are also single jointed hinge and swivel, so all the way around. You can crunch this one into just about 90 degrees. The larger arm is also hinge and swivel, so all the way around. This is the furthest back that it can go, and then you can hinge it into just about 90. The torso is on a ball joint, so you get a little bit of side to side, as well as forward and back. This joint can kind of pop out fairly easily, but it's also really easy to just pop that joint back in, so it's not a big deal to me. Typically, it's only done that when I've gotten a little bit too aggressive with trying to get a pose out of it, so it's not just happening when it's standing there or anything like that. The hips are ball jointed, so you can pivot them forward to there, back to there. You get a double jointed knee there, and a hinge and swivel at the foot, so you can hinge it forward and back, and you can swivel it around. That can be especially useful to position the peg hole in a certain spot if you're trying to put this on a stand. Same thing goes for this leg. It's on a ball joint. It also has the double jointed knee, which gets you a fair amount of crunch, definitely more than I would have expected with a figure like this. And the same thing goes for the foot. You have the hinge and swivel. The hinge on this one is a little bit tricky because it got some paint wash in there, probably in the factory, and so it's a little bit tough to move that joint back and forth, but it's still functional, and you can swivel that all the way around just like so. So altogether, I feel like this figure is really well designed for what it has to offer. Being a bulky character, like with the brutes, it's very tricky to incorporate articulation and actually have it be useful because there's just a lot of bulk here. There's a big clunky arm. There's weird, stumpy feet there. It's kind of tricky, but I think it works, and it's definitely got more points of articulation than I would have expected. I think it does what it needs to. You can move the arms in ways that are useful. You can move the feet enough to get it balanced. And I also really love the coloration that we have going on here. Some of it's molded, some of it is painted on, but you can see the gradient going from this sickly green color down to more of a fleshy orange pink, and then all of that is covered in a paint wash that really pops out all of that sculpt work. I just feel like this really captures the look of a beast made out of the flesh of its consumed victims. It's very gross. It's not a pleasant figure, but then again, the Flood is not a pleasant thing. After all, there is a reason that the Forerunners wanted to eradicate it from the universe, and it's mainly because these guys ate everything at the all-you-can-eat buffets. So yeah, I absolutely think this figure pack is great. You're getting two awesome figures. Even though the Master Chief is a repaint, it's still a really solid figure, and like I said before, everything else you see here is brand new for this pack. And if you get yourself an Arbiter figure, whether it's from the GameStop Warthog run or whether it's from Series 5, you really have the perfect setup for either a Floodgate diorama or a Cortana diorama, those being the two missions where you really face off against the Flood. And also getting multiple of these packs can be really helpful. You get more of these little infection forms, which I think you can never have too many of, especially since in the game these guys are just known for swarming a player. And of course, there's nothing wrong with having an extra Flood tank form. Again, the Flood is all about being a swarm, so if you get two of these packs, you're really just adding to the swarm. But of course, this does leave you with an extra Master Chief, and yeah, you could sell this if you wanted to, but I think it's also a really great opportunity to make a custom Spartan. If you have multiples of these figures, they are very customizable. You could make this into a red versus blue character. You could just paint it to look like your multiplayer Spartan. There are a lot of options. So I don't think this is a bad figure to get multiples of. And if all else fails, you just toss them into a fodder bin for later, and you're left with 2 awesome flood forms, 6 of the infection forms, and 4 of the little base plates. Now, whether you buy 1 or whether you buy 2, it's still a fantastic pack to add to a World of Halo collection, especially if you're someone like me who grew up with Halo 3 being kind of the first Halo that introduced me to the world. So this pack, along with all the other Halo 3 sets that have been coming out, are just really nostalgic for me. But that is where we are going to wrap this video up. So if you want to pick up one of these sets, or 2 of these sets, or 10 of these sets, there's a link down in the description. You can pick one of these up for your very own. As always, there's also a link tree down there that'll take you over to my Instagram, to my Facebook, all my other socials if you want to follow me on those platforms. I use my Instagram for toy photography, and I also post a lot of updates. Like when these things go live, I try to post them in my stories so you guys can be the first to get your hands on them. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, noon, or night, depending on when you're watching this video, of course. And I'll be sure to catch you all in the next video.